Hi, everyone. Before you listen to this podcast, I just wanted to give you a heads up that we kind of steered into some unexpected areas, talking about depression, abuse, trauma. There were the events in my hometown, and I had some things to say about that. And what I'm dealing with that and so forth. So we just wanted to give you a heads up rather than steering you in blindly. I know some people listen to this at work or in their cars or all of that, and maybe you don't need to be crying in the library while you're trying to do your homework. Maybe you do. I don't know. I don't know you. I'm not trying to tell you how to live. So, yeah, just a heads up, and wanted to let you know before we got started. Jack, I went on an adventure.
Okay.
This week. And
an adventure.
It's an adventure that.
Yeah.
It's an adventure that that we've talked about before. That we typically both regret doing.
I regret a lot of things, Ian.
That's true. That's true. I need to narrow it down and be a little bit more specific. I went on. I went on the internet and kind of did a little bit of a random Twitter search to see what people were saying about WandaVision.
Oh, Ian, but you haven't seen it yet.
What are you doing? I think
we're gonna watch it together. If you got spoiled, I'm gonna be so mad.
I'm so on YouTube that certain people I are putting things in their thumbnails that I'm like, oh, well, now that I know that exists, that's definitely a spoiler.
Ian,
also,
I wanted you to go into it like fresh.
There's no way. Yeah, that's very hard for someone who lives and spends his day on the internet. But I was reminded.
Such a wonderful show, though.
I was reminded of the reasons not to do that, especially about things that you're going to watch anyway. I mean, the reasons not to check out
absolutely
the online discourse about things that you're not. Mostly, Jack, the older I'm getting, the more I find that the less time I spend. This sounds so 42-year-old manish, but the less time I spend on Twitter and Facebook, the calmer and fuller my life feels.
Right. Yeah. 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 No, it's funny. You mentioned that though, because I completely avoid like Googling anything about a show I'm currently watching if I don't want it spoiled, because there have been times when, like, say I haven't like understood a certain moment in the show, so I Google it to get an understanding of it to see if I miss something. Then end up reading something that is a spoiler for something ahead, and then I go, well, why did I do that? So now I just don't do it.
There's that infamous experience about. I mean, you have stopped me, where I've called you bone sober in the middle of the night and been like, Jack, I'm gonna check. I'm gonna send my ex-girlfriend a message and look at her Facebook profile.
Yeah, and I've been like, Ian, no.
Yeah, why? No. Why do that to yourself?
Yeah, like why?
It's just one of those morbid curiosity things that everyone's got to have a handful of those. Like
it's like. It's masochistic, or is it sadistic? I always get those two confused. Whenever it is, it's not good.
Yeah, like now, if I were, there's just no reason for me to. Now this is, the thing is, there's an aspect of it that I'm advocating against looking at or taking in the specifically the social media or online.
Sure.
By the way, everyone, hello and welcome to the podcast of the nerds. I'm Ian,
and my name is Jack.
Yeah, I'm advocating specifically against taking in the online discourse for things you're interested in, and I'm someone who runs a YouTube channel for 7 years about Buffy the Vampire Slayer and other things I like. So I realize the implicit hypocrisy to the statement, but I think there's also a difference between social media versus sort of going to Metacritic. Not that I'm a part of Metacritic, or I used to always read Roger Ebert because he had his writing was the style that even if I disagreed with him, there would still be thought-provoking stuff in the review.
Okay.
Good things to think about. Or even if I was never going to see the movie that he was reviewing, he would bring information to the review that was valuable to me, that made reading the review enjoyable by itself. And that's something with my videos I have strived to do. Now, when you're doing an episode in the middle of season 3 of a show that is arc and builds on itself, you can't exactly make it self-contained so that anyone can come along whether they've seen the show or not. But I do I do try and make videos for She and Where the Wild Things Are and all of that might not be great episodes.
Be a bad, and then you get it out of the park and nail it.
redeeming videos. So I think there's a distinction between someone doing an analysis or a critique or all of that, and just sort of the online. But I was morbidly curious and immediately regretted going and looking at it when I did. Now, some people, Jack, some people might believe that means that my opinions are weak, that they are not subject to scrutiny. And to that I say...
Yeah? What do you say?
Who cares?
Exactly, yeah. The other interpretation is also often you just can't handle people shitting on the things that you like. You can't handle a dissenting opinion or whatever. But for me, because I'm kind of the same. Like I started watching Red Letter Media's video on Joker. It was a Half in the Bag episode, I think, and they didn't like it. And so I stopped watching 10 minutes in because I'm like, I really like this movie and I don't want
that experience.
Exactly. I want to like the things that I like.
Right.
And having your opinions challenged is fine and everything. But if I like something, I just want to keep on liking it. And if they don't like it, it's totally fine. I'm not saying that they shouldn't not like it, and they should make videos talking about how they don't like it, but
I don't have to watch
I don't want to watch it.
Yeah,
exactly,
and I don't have to participate in the discourse. I would rather have an enjoyable experience than a bad one that I feel like I have objective evidence for.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Because it does kind of it. Even if you love something, hearing someone tear it to shreds can still have an impact on that.
Sure. There's things that cannot be unseen. There's, and I'm sure that I have created that experience for some people. Once I point out
with the territory.
Yeah. Once I point out some critique or some hang up I had about the episode, I'm sure that there are certain things that those people are unable to unsee after, whether it's, let's say it's Riley's Riley. Well, there you go. Okay, that's a better example. I was gonna say if you watched This Year's Girl, and watched the Freaky Friday interactions and watched it with a light heart and got to the end and were moved by Faith's emotions, seeing herself and all of that, and that was it. That was the end of the experience. More power to you. To me, there is a social contract with coming along and engaging with my content. We all do that by choice.
Yeah,
and
but
hopefully
we're always free to click away if we don't want to watch it.
Yeah, hopefully. What I'm saying is, after you watched my video, you may now never see that scene between Riley and Faith the same way again.
Right. But that's like you said, that's sort of the social contract you're making when you start watching a video.
Right, and hopefully you gain more than you lose in the watching of my content. And also, Yeah, I don't know. I'm in great danger of contradicting myself. So,
But something we talk about a lot is just like, who wants to hate things? You know,
Right.
like it's so much more fun liking things and enjoying things.
and I think that's also the spot where all of my content begins from. Is I love
Right,
this
yeah.
thing, and when you're
yeah,
done
yeah.
with this video, when I'm done with this video, I'm still gonna love this thing.
Yeah,
You know?
like, and you very rarely talk about things that you don't enjoy. Even like the Baywatch movie, you didn't exactly enjoy it, but you still found things to enjoy about it. You know,
Yeah,
like
well, and
you didn't make a video tearing it to shreds. You know,
yeah, that video began
and
from
you could have.
the point of view of that's the thing I was talking about, is how to create a piece of content that is worth watching, even if my opinion of the movie wasn't great.
And Beer Bad is another example of that.
Yeah. But since then, I have not written some reviews because I couldn't answer that question. With the episode guides, I don't get to let myself off the hook. I decided early on, where I thought I might skip some episodes and skip reviews. Originally, back when there were 100 subscribers, and that was a lot for me at the time, people were like, no, don't skip any. So here we are 7.5 years later, and I'm still not. Anyway,
Wow.
7.5 years to go 4.5 seasons.
And I've been with you for like probably 5 years now. It's been a while.
Isn't that crazy?
That you know what? It feels like yesterday, but at the same time, it feels like forever ago.
Yeah.
It's such a weird feeling.
I mean, I feel like
don't know.
we've changed considerably in just that short amount of time. You know.
Oh yeah, both of us dramatically. I think.
Then again, at this age, 5 years feels like nothing. And then you
Yeah.
think about it when you're in high school, and like the 4 years of high school feels like an eternity.
What's with that? Especially like when I was a kid, a year felt like forever. Now, like we're almost at the end of March. I'm like, we're more than a quarter of the way through the year. What the hell happened? Like,
Well, I mean, pandemic time dilation is its own thing, but
time
it's
is
the
just speeding
accumulation of experience. When I was living with the kids, it was so interesting. I'd be gone for a week, and I knew that was like a month and a half for them, because every single day is this horizon of possibility stretching off in the distance.
Actually, I've read something about that a while ago, that there had been some sort of research, or there's a certain line of thinking to that it is about when you're a kid, you're having all of these new experiences, and that somehow fills your brain and makes you experience time at a slower pace. Whereas when you're an adult, it all becomes mundane, and you start doing the same shit over and over and over again. And then you're like, wait, I'm middle aged. What the hell happened?
Yeah. Well, anyway, long story short, if you want to watch something, just watch it. I go to Metacritic,
absolutely.
but to me, a number is different than
Yeah,
the kind of
I find that-
conversations you and I are talking about.
I will only do that once I've watched something.
Yeah.
And
I just want to have whatever opinion I was going to have before I watched it.
Right,
Metacritic to me is like a signpost. Maybe go this direction. Where that sort of conversation, that sort of discourse is tainting to me.
But I really hope that WandaVision isn't like ruined for you in some way. Because
I don't know.
I loved it.
We're gonna find out.
It was a wonderful experience.
I'll talk a little bit more about what I've been doing to prepare for it later on. But before we get into this conversation, I need to acknowledge. I don't know. I normally avoid this kind of thing, but Jack, there was I don't want to say the words anymore. I don't want to say mass shooting because those words have it's just meaningless. It's repeated so often it's hollow.
Yeah. And thoughts and prayers, same thing.
I'm sure this is normally where you've been watching a show, anyone listening to this or listening to a podcast, and this is where the hosts speak in soft, mournful, or respectful tones, but I'm not feeling that way. I feel bitter.
Amen.
So, Jack, 10 people in my hometown were murdered last week in a grocery store my family went to when I was 6, about a mile from the first home I ever owned, a block from my aunt's house. Yada, yada, yada.
That's got to be weirdly surreal and gross.
Well,
feeling.
if you want to see some beautiful footage of my hometown, go and watch the vlog I did announcing that I was going full-time with the channel. I feel like because some people have reached out to me saying they know I'm from Boulder, it would be weird to acknowledge, or rather to not acknowledge what happened. But this is not the first time my community, and I talked to my dad about it, and he said that's why we moved to Colorado. We're from Illinois, but Colorado felt like a community no matter where you were. Illinois is very segmented, segregated.
Okay.
This is not the first time my community has been touched by this kind of violence. When I was 19, 2 kids inflicted horror on Columbine High School, where my cousins were attending. My friend Nigel and I were considering meeting to go to a midnight screening of Dark Knight Rises the night of the Aurora shooting, 20 to 30 minutes from us, and those are just the ones I clearly remember. There are more, many more. But here's the thing. I don't really want to talk about it because I don't have anything artful to add. For 25 years, I've been listening to the same conversation, the same tired old talking points, the same outrage and activism, the same defenses, and 10 more people are dead. And I'm just tired. I'm not in a good place. I'm grappling with my own grief again. I feel sick over the lack of decency to do anything to save people, to prevent horror, and I'm trying to come to grips with the fact that other groups in my country have been feeling like this for decades. And the mounting years have also become a battle with my own constantly encroaching and completely hopeless nihilism about it all. And Jack, since that is not what we're here for, maybe we just don't. So, I don't know. I didn't feel like we could go without saying anything. I realize that's a huge bummer to kind of start things by. But I just don't have anything pleasant to add to the discourse about it. So, Jack, why don't you just tell us what we're up to today?
Well, Ian, today on the podcast, we're going to be going through and responding to some comments from previous episodes.
By the way, that's a tall order to have you follow and segue out of that. Lovely job, my friend.
Thanks.
Here's
what can we do?
Here's what you can do, right, Jack? And here's the only thing you can do is love and hold the people that matter to you closer. And Jack, you are absolutely one of those people in my life.
Too, man.
So I love you, and
I love you too. You're like you're a mentor. You're like a big brother in a way. You're kind of like a father figure to me. Like, yeah.
Wait, when you say big,
I mean you're big and hairy.
Wait,
and
no, I didn't mean that. But never mind. There we go. I drove a beautiful sentiment into.
Honestly, though, like it's yeah, you know, as you know, stuff like that just doesn't happen here.
Yeah. Yeah,
you know,
well, and I don't want to get into the politics of it all because it's I'm so tired of it.
But I just want to say that like I feel for you and all of you over there. It's well,
here's the thing. It's
so
anyone
scary.
listening,
and I worry about you too, man. I really do. Like, 'cause it's.
The thing I want to say to anyone listening is that if you are, the reason I don't want to get into this is because if you are feeling activist and you are feeling angry and you are feeling hope and you are feeling change, then the worst thing I could do in the world would be to then good. Then do it. Use it. I'm just tired. After that, we're going to be talking about our return to the list of shame. Finally returning to the list of shame with Full Metal Jacket.
Oh, on the film. We're going to get into it, but oof.
Yeah. That movie is to me. Well, we'll get into it. Yeah.
And then, of course, we're going to be returning to the fanfic reading with another chapter from Here Is Gone by Terri Botta. So, Ian?
Yes, Jack.
You and I mean, part of what we do here on the podcast is we talk pretty candidly about not only our struggles, but our experiences and the things that we go through. And I myself, I've talked pretty openly about my mental health struggles, and I've been having a bit of a tough time with that as of late. It all sort of came to a head rather recently, and I know I've talked a lot about this, and it seems to be up and down, and I feel like a broken record too. Like, it's fine.
Change is hard, man. Like the line says, peace is not an easy thing to find. You know, like Absolutely. That's why we. It's a long timeline, and that's the thing is it's a long journey. I've been doing therapy for 7 years now, and I would say I've really started to reap the benefits of it the past couple of years.
And I'm glad, dude. I've seen you come so far. It's amazing. It's night and day. But yeah, man, like, it's funny because when I was in Sydney with my family, I had all these like great ideas creatively and just inspiration for things that I wanted to do when I got back home. I felt really motivated and invigorated and stuff. And then I got home and it was like the fire in me just went out. It's like a light just switched off. Once I got home, I started feeling really depressed, and not just depressed, but just like empty, and it's like the world lost its color. You said in a video, I believe it's from which one? It's the quote you said is profound depression is not necessarily measured by how bad you feel, but by how little you feel. Was it?
That's the first top 10 list.
Right. Yeah. And that's, I've been thinking about that a lot lately, because that's exactly how I've been feeling. Dude, it's like I said, it's like it's like the fire in me just went out, and I just couldn't do anything. I couldn't think. I couldn't feel anything. I'd try to watch a movie or a TV show, and I would feel nothing. Like, I would engage in things that I know that I love and I enjoy, and it just.
This is when you were back home in Sydney?
No. Once I got back home here.
Got it.
In Melbourne. Yeah. When I was in Sydney, I felt inspired and had all these great ideas, and then I got back here, and it all just disappeared. Like, I don't know what the hell happened. I just became so empty, and hollow, and I just couldn't do anything. Like, I'd try to play a video game just to pass the time, and it didn't feel entertaining. It didn't just didn't do anything, and that is so, like, I would rather be miserable and full of pain than be full of nothing, you know, to feel nothing. That existential space is I haven't been there for a while, but I know exactly what you're talking about. The thing of it is kind of the channel was started because of the influence of that. I mean, at the end of the day, work was something I went to pay the bills, but I didn't have a family and I didn't have children.
I have a wonderful circle of friends, but they're living their own lives, and they were having kids, and they were doing things, and all of that.
Yeah.
And you know, there had to be something else. I had to figure out what the something else was. And I went through a period where I had a lot of ideas too. I started originally I started a blog. This was after I saw not Victor Victoria. That's the wrong movie. There's a movie about Amy Adams is in it. She plays a woman who writes a vlog where she does every recipe in this cookbook. And the cookbook is a very famous book on French cooking. And interspersed in the movie are flashbacks to that woman played by Meryl Streep going back and writing the book for the first time and learning how to cook. And I was so inspired by Amy Adams writing the blog. This is interesting, actually, for me, because it connects to a script I'm writing. But I was so inspired by that story that I started a blog called StuffYouReview.com or StuffYouReview.org, which I thought was an easy-to-remember name, an easy brand, where we would review things like this was 2007. The best tasting frozen pizza. So it would kind of be like low-hanging reviews for the best Halloween candy. Kind of the stuff that Good Mythical Morning does now. We wrote one or two articles. We did the best tasting frozen pizza one. I think it was DiGiorno of all the ones we tried. And
I think we have that brand too.
And all of that. But then my motivation for it, my what I perceived to be passion for it, just sort of dissipated, and I stopped making stuff for it and ended up back in that space. The only time something finally stuck was the channel. So I know that struggle. I know what you're.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because it's like, it's not that I didn't want to do the things. It's not that I didn't want to make stuff and do podcasts and all that stuff. It's more just I couldn't find the fuel for it, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
It wasn't necessarily that I don't enjoy video games anymore, or I don't enjoy the films that I like. It was just, I don't know, man. It's so hard to put into words. But
it sounds like an identity crisis.
Yeah,
you hit a wall.
Well, not really an identity crisis. I mean, kind of, but it was more just like, it's not. It wasn't really a realization that I was doing things I'm not enjoying, because I'm, I like what we do here. I like editing. I like video games. It was just this overwhelming sense of emptiness that. Yeah, man, like, it was just a really tough couple of weeks. I've been in therapy since late last year, and since getting home, I've had some rather confronting sessions with my psychologist, but tough but very essential sessions, and it's helped a bit. I mean, I'm somewhat doing better now, sort of. Like, it's still a struggle. But that's the thing, and you just kind of touched on it, is that healing is not a linear thing. It's very messy, and there isn't really a single moment when you wake up and go, oh, it's all better now. There's no thanks doc, I'm cured. That doesn't really happen.
No, it's funny. My therapist and I. I had pretty much resigned myself to the idea that I would be in therapy for the rest of my life. And if you think of it from the standpoint of a coach or any of that, there are some people that need coaching on their shot and mechanics daily. There are some people that need it weekly. There are some people that would benefit visiting an unbiased third party once a month to say, hey, here's kind of what I'm up to. What do you think? Someone who doesn't have a stake in anything, someone who's just going to be
Yeah.
honest with you and straightforward with you.
Yes. And
Some-
impartial.
Yeah. There is never a time in life when I don't think that loses its function, loses its use. But it was funny. My therapist a few months ago said to me for the first time that she could envision a time when I, had internalized the tools of that process enough where I just didn't need to come in, and I was shocked, like, really? She said, sure, then things come along like a grief, and then we see each other for a couple of weeks and talk through it and work on things, but mostly you carry the tools that we use in here with you. So it's not that crises stop happening or things stop occurring, but you have the tools to support yourself and deal with them, and to kind of move through them. And what's weird is I notice when I have a session on the books, I will. I have this happened more than once. I'll see I have a session on the books, and then I think, well, we've got to talk about something. I guess what have I been dealing with? And then I'll start thinking about the things I've been dealing with. And I'll be like, well, I could probably change my approach this way, and then I just work it out before I ever.
That is the most Ian thing I've ever heard.
And then we get into therapy. We've had many sessions where I just tell jokes, or tell a story, and then I'm like, well,
you're very sort of like almost you're like emotionally independent in a way. Like you love to fix things in your mind. Like I admire that greatly about you, but I'm sure it drives you freaking crazy.
Well, it's my path to peace. Like that's the thing about anxiety and stress and self-hatred and all of those things, is that once you kind of realize that you don't have to carry them,
right,
they're not a curse. They are active processes. They're things we learned from terrible events in our lives, or things we taught ourselves as coping mechanisms, or whatever they are. But once you realize that you don't need to do them, you don't need to hate yourself. You don't need to punish yourself. You don't need to feel bad. It takes a lot of work, but if you do the work, then, and like once I kind of realized that, like, I didn't have to do that, then it can be tedious, and I'm sure I exhaust other people, because not everyone works the same way. Like, not everyone is the way I am about, like, here, let's disassemble that and look at its component parts and put it together into something more pretty.
There have been many times when I've come to you with some sort of anguish that I'm going through, and you're like, Jack, do you need me to fix this, or do you just want me to shut up and listen?
That's a very important,
absolutely.
I've realized that I can't always make that distinction, and so I ask up front, are you just looking for me to listen, or do you want me to work on this with you?
99% of the time, though, when I come to you with such a thing, it's because I need you to help me stop being such a crazy person, like you're, oh my god, you're almost like a coach for me, like you've talked me down off a lot of ledges,
Well, I mean, we have each other for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
What else is going on for you?
Well,
first of all, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to rush past that. Was there anything else you wanted?
Oh, well, just, I just plan to keep working on myself and going to therapy and just trying to be kind to myself, which I struggle with. I'm notoriously hard on myself. It's something that I need to work on, but also just taking advantage of the good days and just holding on through the bad days, I guess. But yeah, things haven't been all bad though. I have some pretty exciting news. I have officially begun working with Chipperish Media. Thank you very much. Under the illustrious title of Content Coordinator. Lani and I, she offered me a position last year, and we talked about it for a little while, and we made it official over the last few weeks, and I'm part of the Chipperish crew.
I'm feeling jealous and competitive.
I mean, you're like the last person in the world that needs to feel that way, but
my title for you is better.
Oh yeah, what is your title?
Jesus, Jack, you have an emoticon in all our streams.
Okay, that's fair. But hey, like I say to everybody, there's plenty of Jack to go around, and hey, when you and Lani first started dating, do you remember what I said?
Wow, that's amazing. Do it.
What? No, that's what I said to you. But then I said, tell Lani that I'm okay with it, but he was mine first.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's okay, you know. It's reciprocated. Yeah, but no, I'm super excited, and I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity. I was also extremely terrified, as you knew, because. Yeah, I don't know, going into anything new, but I completed my first bit of work, and Lani was very impressed, and I let out a sigh of relief.
You're a good editor, man.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. One day I might believe it. We'll see.
Sky also blue, water also wet.
You're a good man, Ian. Another thing too, I have begun another podcast with a couple of cool cats from the Patreon hangouts that we do. Sarah Ezat, aka the Costume Nerd, and a lovely fellow by the name of Josh Gosden, with
friends of the show.
Yes, friends of the show, very very good friends of the show. We've gotten together and we've started a podcast centered around the TV show Farscape. Sarah's seen it and she's a big fan, and she came to me and she was like, "Look, I know you haven't seen the show. Josh hasn't either. So would you guys like to get together, watch the show, and then make a podcast on it?" So yeah, we filmed an intro episode a week or two ago, and we're filming another one later in the week, and we're just gonna go through the whole series episode by episode and spend an hour or so talking about it on a podcast. Yeah, if you're interested in that, keep an eye out on my Twitter. Hasn't been released just yet, but it's coming soon. Mm-hmm. So Ian, what about you?
Well, there was a story that I was thinking of telling on the podcast, but in light of the recent events, and I don't know, do we want? We're talking about considering the way we opened, and we're talking about grappling with depression and all of that. Mm-hmm. It's like, do we want to? Do I want to go for the bummer Full House?
Well, it's real, man. Like some podcasts, some episodes are going to be cheery and upbeat. Others, we need to just get our shit out. And maybe this is what that is, you know, and that's okay. Yeah. You okay?
I'm editing in my head. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to go there just yet. But you were talking about. I had a very interesting experience. You were talking about therapy generally is not like, these big aha moments and I'm cured and so forth. Generally, that's not what it is. It's a lot of hard work. No. It's slow.
I mean, it can be for some people. They do have an epiphany of sorts and a breakthrough.
Yeah, it's for some people. Yeah, breakthroughs are real. Yeah. Breakthroughs are not often. I've had lots of breakthroughs in my life, when I was in the cult of self-help. Lots of breakthroughs. Breakthroughs can become addictive because they feel like change, but they're not.
Yeah, but they're often followed by a lot of hard work.
They need to be, but they're not. But mine weren't, and that was the problem. It was like, people came to the self-help cult for a number of reasons, and looking for, and most of them was because they were unhappy with aspects of their life and they were looking for change. And some of them found it. I didn't. I felt change. I felt emotional shifts, but then the hum and the drum of my life that I was used to at the time, and my all of that kind of took back over again, and I became very suspicious of breakthroughs, because a lot of my success in therapy has come from accepting that despite how smart I am, I'm also not that different from my cat Josie. Right? We're both animals. We're both, we both have brains with neurons that connect, and some pathways between neurons have been reused over and over and over again. And one of mine is alcohol, and there are some that are fresh and new and need me to constantly make the decision to reinforce that path, and that was quitting drinking. It was very easy for me to drink. It was very easy for me. It was a source of peace and joy for me, being
I remember
being drunk.
You describing it as the thing that would dull the voices in your head,
right?
Like it would,
and quitting. I think we're on a year this month. Has been.
Congratulations!
Thank you.
By the way.
Quitting was work. Quitting was, having to remember, wait, no, I quit. Over and over and over again. The Pavlov's dog kind of reinforce. And, like, accepting that, for one, kind of takes the pressure off yourself from slip-ups. We're animals. We're people. We're, we're not that we're not that distinct from gorillas or whatever. The machinery works the same way. We just have a greater capacity to feel shitty about it.
Yeah, like we're kind of smart apes, but that's kind of smart.
And I mean, so that made it easier for me to just kind of go, oh yeah, okay, no, yeah, no, and like, now I go a few days without thinking about a drink. Used to be a few hours. Someday it might be a few weeks. That's progress. That's slow. That's the progress I am familiar with. The breakthrough that I needed to quit drinking was not the fix to making it happen. On the other hand, I recently began there's this. I think I've kind of hinted at that. I have some trauma that that happened to me as a young man. I think I was 16. Happened a couple of times, and I've thought about writing about it for a long time. Thought about writing about it on the channel, but I never wanted the channel to be the place where I air my laundry. I like having a private life. I like.
I mean, you've been okay with doing that through the prism of a Buffy video or something, like to an extent anyway.
I only ever wanted to tell a story if I knew the punchline. If I understood, if I had learned, forget everyone else, if I had learned what there was to learn from the story. If I could get something out of that story, then I felt like maybe it was a story worth telling. Because then I knew that it could be effective, that there was value there. I had the concrete evidence that there was value, right? And I never really figured out what that was from my assault.
Okay.
And telling that story. And I knew that I could craft something that was emotional, that was meaningful to some people, that was evocative, but I didn't know what there was to learn myself. And it has the event itself has reared its head multiple times over the course of my life, and continues to. And finally, I was talking to my therapist about it, and she said, "Okay." She said, "Look," she said, "I'm going to suggest something, and I don't think you're going to like it." And I said, "Okay." And she said, I think we should do what's called immersion therapy.
Yep.
Yeah. So she said, what we do is we schedule 5 consecutive sessions, and you come in here every day, or every one of those sessions, 5 weeks in a row, and write the story of what happened in every detail you can remember. And she said it's going to be miserable, and you're and it's gonna cause problems for those couple of weeks. She said, but the value, the purpose of it is to sap the event of its power. To stop putting it away and pushing it out of view, but to blunt its teeth. It's not what she said, but and I said, that sounds terrible. When do we start? Which is the whole approach of this podcast. The whole
absolutely
is like fear is just not good enough, not reason not to do something, not to pursue being healthy, not to, I'm not saying that it's meaningless. I'm just saying that for me,
sometimes it's because of the fear that we should do something.
Right. The opportunity to live a full, healthy, peaceful life is worth more to me.
Or even just to achieve things, That's why I did the solo podcast. I was terrified, but I did it. I know that's not even close to what
we're not comparing, buddy. But that's, I feel like that's the operating principle of what you and I do and what we talk about. So, I basically had a breakdown the day before the session happened, and then we had a technology problem the day of the session and missed it. And which worked out. It was like a test run to all of the stress and anxiety before it happened, and then
so I guess it kind of worked out in a way.
Yeah, and then the next week we just sort of went into it, and she said, okay. She said, well, we're not here to talk about anything else at this moment. She said, I'm going to read some things and explain to you what this is. And wow, could I feel the total physical resistance to starting.
Right.
I it's such an unusual experience ordinarily we I think it's the human impulse to put misery away, because, and this is part of the video that I want to write about this whole experience, is like, that's what feeling That's what getting healthy feels like. Is like when you experience a trauma,
hard.
you are on fucking fire.
Hmm.
And you wake up every day on fire. And you just want a day where you are not on fucking fire anymore.
Yeah.
And then you get an hour where you don't think about it. And then you get a day. And then you get a week.
Yeah.
And that's what getting healthy feels like. You feel like you pray for those days. You pray for that that peace, the chance to just space out and play a video game, and to forget what that person did to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of deliberately rekindling that kind of trauma is
it's totally, what is it, antithetical or whatever
counterintuitive
it's called?
completely. Yeah, like it feels utterly insane. And so we were sitting there, and I could feel every fiber of my being resisting starting. But I was okay, so now what do we do? And she said, well, you're going to write this, and I want you to... She was reading a thing about, like, details matter, and, focus on this. I'm sorry, everyone. Like, I didn't mean to make this kind of emotional thing.
Don't. You always tell me not to apologize for things, so I'm going to tell you in this moment.
Well, I hope that everyone is in a space to listen to this kind of thing, and I'm not going to go into gory details about the event itself, because it's not actually what the relevant part of the story was. Just as much of a trigger warning as we can give at this point. So I could feel my resistance and my desire to distract and my desire to look at everything except the screen. It's not all too dissimilar from procrastination. And I do this blindfolded journaling thing where I put on eye covers and write for 25 minutes, and I find it miraculous in the ways that it filters out distractions and allows me to just be with my thoughts and to say what's there. I asked her if that was okay. She said sure, and so she started the timer, and we kind of went at it. And the most of the story. So I was 16, and the part from that part of the story leading into the moment itself was he had told me, if you come over here, something bad is going to happen. And I this man in his 40s, and I thought he was kidding. And I was deeply lonely, and there was alcohol involved, and it was. I had left Illinois, and my dad wasn't speaking to me anymore, and I was in a state where I had no friends and none of that, and he had. We were talking about drinking. This guy befriended me, started to allure me, and. We started talking about alcohol, and the night of, he told me, if you come over here and get drunk, something bad is going to happen, right? And so, for 25 years, I think the part of the story that I have struggled with, or now again, I'm speaking purely about my own experiences, everyone. If you have dealt with this, I'm not making statements that apply to you. I promise. I'm just trying to speak personally about what I've grappled with as a result of this. After the event and after that time spent and after the way trauma radically destroys your perspective and shapes something new that is cobbled together by my own just desire to feel normal and to get through the day. There's always been a question for me, like, why did I go over there? Now, let me be clear. I'm not blaming myself for what happened. But after all the trauma and the sadness and the ways in which this infects your life and shows up in relationships and shows up in your ability to trust and your ability to hug another human being, to let someone touch you. You know, the only thing you're present to is the event itself. And so I started writing about the lead up. I started writing about that summer where my dad kicked me out at the end of the school year, and I moved to Colorado and knew no one. And the events leading up to that, and how lonely I felt, and how, you know, my mom, bless her heart, was trying to, you know, she would bring people over for me to meet, and she brought this guy over, and this guy befriended me. And I was desperately lonely, and I started to, during the writing, I started writing about, why did I go over there? What was the thing? Like, I don't remember what we were talking about before he said that to me. I just remembered what he said. And kind of like blinding myself out and getting back into the moment and the experience of it, I remembered it was the alcohol.
Okay.
I was a 16-year-old kid.
I did similar things as a teenager. Found myself in stupid situations, either for alcohol or weed.
It was the alcohol. I was, as a 16-year-old kid, I had not rid myself of the perspective that alcohol is a party in a bottle. Right, which is a perspective sold, I don't know about other countries, but is a perspective sold to American kids in this.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And even just, when we celebrate in general, it's expected that you have a drink in order to celebrate something.
And I wanted to feel happy. Yeah. That was it. That was the whole thing. I was a lonely 16-year-old kid, and I wanted to feel happy. And I thought he was kidding. I didn't understand adult relationships and adult sexuality, also, or violence or dominance or any of that stuff.
But even if you were an adult, like, you're only 16, but even as an adult, like, how are you meant to know exactly what that means? And if someone said that to me, I would assume they were kidding too. Like, I don't know, that's sick, man.
And when I was writing this, and when I, like, here's the thing. It's important to understand this dynamic. I didn't blame myself for what happened, but I felt like it was kind of like this, right? In the decay of memory and passing of time, you know, if you get eaten by a lion, you don't, obviously it's the lion's fault, right?
Right.
But I kept wondering why I went into the desert.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And look, you already know this, but I just want to, like, put it out there that all these feelings are very emblematic of people that have suffered abuse and
right.
trauma. regret, even like blaming oneself to an extent. Like it's all part of it.
And here's the thing. That happened when I remembered that I was a kid. It is like
Exactly.
That's kind of trauma you feel lensed through time.
Yeah.
You experience it
like-
today as though it had just happened, but it didn't. I was a 16-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you're 16, you feel like you're older and whatnot, but you're still a kid at 20.
The most important thing, though, is like once I realized my motivations, that was the moment that I realized that they were utterly irrelevant.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
But
even if you got blind, drunk, and passed out, that
utterly irrelevant. Like,
Yeah.
I couldn't get there without that exercise of remembering the way I thought about stuff as a kid. I was a kid.
Okay.
That wasn't. That was. And that was the first time that I've ever forgiven myself. You know, like
That's powerful, man.
in a bubble, you kind of, and it's not even that. It's not even that. It's like stopped blaming that kid. You know,
Oh boy, yeah.
which is
Something that resonates with me.
which is something I because of the way it has just felt like me the entire time. I blame myself today for everything, but that wasn't me. That was a kid
Yeah,
and a monster.
yeah. And you know what? Most 16-year-olds are in a hurry to grow up, and they want to do all the things and live and party and all that shit. Like,
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
a kid
and, like,
just being a kid.
The year before then, I had gotten drunk with my stepsister, and we at a party, and it was a ton of fun. Kids are kids. I was a kid.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
I did a lot of stupid shit as a teenager that I regret now, but at the same time, I'm like, even though I did a lot of stupid shit, I had a lot of fun, and I was a kid, so whatever.
That's the thing, is like it's less forgive that kid, but stop blaming him. He has nothing to be forgiven for. There's nothing.
Yeah. And almost like reach back in time and try to comfort him, if you know what I mean. And
yeah, and that's. I mean, that's the value. That was. I don't know that I could have gotten there if I hadn't done this exercise, because I couldn't stop seeing. Now, here's the thing. Even if that happened to me today, it wouldn't be my fault. You know, that's not what I'm saying. But my propensity, my impulse is always to hold myself accountable for everything, to blame myself for everything. But I would never blame a 16-year-old kid,
right, for being assaulted.
For being assaulted, and to see like that kid's relationship to what he thought alcohol was, and how lonely he was. And just wanted to feel.
He just wanted
happy.
Yeah, he wanted some companionship.
Yeah,
and to have some fun, like
a friend.
A lot of 16-year-olds want that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and you know, you've just gone through a lot at the time. Yeah,
I'd never been able to let that go, and people, you know, you hear those terms like forgive yourself and all of that, but
sound like buzzwords that they use.
Yeah, they sound like aphorisms, or like for me, we talked earlier about unpacking stuff and going through things, and like that is the reason why, is because there's so many fallacies in our own perspectives of time and our memories and all of that. And the one that I was suffering from in that moment was that he is me, you know. And he's a part of me, but he's not the man I am today with the age and the wisdom and the accrued experience.
So would you say that writing it down allowed you to almost see it as a third party? Like you were able to
Well,
see.
it was horrible.
Of course
The
it was.
writing
Yeah.
experience was awful.
Mm,
I sort of lapsed into shock for
yeah.
about an hour and then collapsed and had an episode.
Yeah.
And then the next day it was a bad day, and then I was good.
Yeah. I remember that.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah. You were off that day.
yeah. But I, but that's the thing, right? Is like the metaphor that I've come up with to understand the way the process works, so that I could work on it for myself, is the fire. Is like when the fire goes out, it feels like getting healthy. It feels like you get the chance to move on. But unless you grapple with and heal the scars and the damage that was left,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna carry it. You're gonna carry it with you, and I will carry some shape of that with me the
Oh,
rest
of
of my
course.
life.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like working through it isn't about erasing it from yourself. You
Sure.
can't do
So
do that. It happened.
the metaphor falls apart at a certain point, but I never dealt with the scars. I don't think.
Hmm.
I think
Right.
I
You sort of patched them up, but they never
I
healed.
wanted. I mean, you know what? We are remarkable animals. We can
Mm-hmm.
deal with horrible things, and we can pick ourselves up, and we can
You
keep
can
moving
keep going.
forward. But that's not always the
Yeah.
best approach.
No, no. I mean, I think human beings often have this innate resilience, but
We're
that
very
often
resilient.
leads. Yeah, but that leads to often like skipping over things without really dealing with them or
Well, that's
processing them.
yeah. We are all meaning-making machines. You know, we're
Hmm.
constantly interpreting the world and cataloging and all of that. And like for about a year, I was on fire and making up interpretations of how the world works. And I have found
Hmm.
that those are like flaws in the lens I look through to see the world. They're very hard
Yeah,
to see um, unless they're influencing a relationship or including my relationship with myself. And
hmm,
in this thing that we've been talking about, where it's like you have the choice to put stuff down, to get healthy, to to let go of anxiety and self-hatred, and to just experience peace, you really can do that.
right.
That means not looking at the event, but looking at the lens. You know, figuring out
Right.
all of those things that you made up. I mean, as an example, like one of the ones that I've had to grapple with is like male sexuality is vile and unwanted.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
You've talked about that before. Yeah,
yeah, and
and that'd be a hard one to shrug off. And I know
there's
you
a
still struggle with it in some ways.
there are a lot of ways that unexamined infects your life,
Hmm.
infects your perspective. And once I saw that I had that, it's a slow process of connect the dots back to, oh, but I thought I was over that thing that happened.
I've had that experience the last couple of months too. Like, just on the podcast last year, I was talking about how I was thinking about stopping medication stuff because I worked through stuff, and then I
Yeah.
realized, oh boy, no, there's a whole lot of shit I just locked away.
Yeah, and
But yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to
no, no, no,
cut you
you're
off
good.
there.
It's just like, but the truth is that like, just because I am not suffering in agony from the event itself, as I was the weeks and the months afterwards, um, doesn't mean the damage was healed. Like that, those perspectives, those interpretations, and those ways of seeing the world, um, need to be addressed. And part of the ways of addressing it is by doing what I'm doing now, which is taking
Mm.
the sting, trying to take the
Yeah,
teeth out of the experience by facing it.
right, yeah.
Um, and this was one session, you know. But that moment of, like, we talked about therapy as work, and it often is, especially when you're dealing with sort of self-doubt or self-hatred or imposter syndrome or all of that.
It's a proactive thing. You can't just sit there and listen to the words. You have to put them to use.
But I'll tell you, man, that moment of separation between myself and that kid, and just, wanting to hug that kid and just be like, dude, I'm so sorry. That was a breakthrough. That was that does happen too, I guess. That was a shift. Where I felt something in me move. And and maybe now there's 4 more of these to go.
It's gonna be tough,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah. So that's my story.
No, I just want to say, like, in all seriousness, Ian, I love you so very much, and I'm so proud of you for facing this and dealing with it. And I know this wasn't in the script today. I know you weren't planning on going into this, but I want to say thank you for going into it and for sharing it and just
I've always
Thank you.
it's always been I talked about, there aren't a ton of conversations about, I don't know, I don't hear a ton of conversations from other men talking about this kind of thing, and I don't know that there is as much. It's just not a part of the culture in the same way for.
It's
And I'm not espousing that as, but my hope, for that reason alone, I've always thought that at some point I will write a piece for the channel about this. But I wanted to understand the journey myself.
right.
And
Right. You weren't quite there yet. It was
Right.
still, and that's what you're doing now. You're figuring it out. You're working
and this
through
is
it and,
this is a small piece of that whole thing. But my thought has always been, if me writing about sexual violence that I experienced as a young man, and putting that out there, and some 19-year-old kid who has recently dealt with something similar can hear that story or can hear those things, then it's worth it. Then it's worth putting out there. It's worth sharing the whole thing. But I just needed more information than I had on the whole thing.
That's sort of how I felt today. While we were setting up, I told you how I was feeling more nervous than I usually am, and it was because I knew I was going to talk about some vulnerable things, and I did it because, one, my own catharsis, but I always think that there could be someone else out there that understands or is going through it, and that's. Like, if there's anything I want to do in life, it's to assure people that they're not alone, and that no matter how fucked up they feel, no matter what they're thinking or going through, someone else has felt that way, and so that's why I chose to speak about it.
And the thing that my perspective to my approach to content creation is, like, that thing that I described is something I can't control. When I make something, when I put it on the internet, I really cannot control the outcome. You can hope for an outcome.
Like you put it out there, and sort of what happens from there is out of your control.
The only outcome that I can control is my own reaction and my own relationship to the story or the piece of content or whatever. And that's why I knew I wasn't. I'm not ready yet.
You have your interpretation, and then people are going to have their own, regardless of what you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't. This is the podcast of how the hell do we segue out of that?
I know, like it's been particularly tough this episode, but I mean, this is the stuff that we are here for, you know. Yeah, we talk about nerdy shit in films because we love that stuff, but this is also like a place for us to talk about these things, and for you guys to talk about them too.
In my head, the podcast was always kind of about my. When I started it originally, was about my journey to become better. Mm-hmm. You know, in whatever form that took, whether that was mental health or emotional health or all of that. And I think this fits right into that, you know.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think that
100%.
Our relationship is I don't know. It makes it a little more organic than me sort of speaking directly at the camera, and you provide a perspective on the journey and, you know, things you go through and all of that. So I think we work much better together. Anyway, we wanted to read a couple of your comments.
Yes. Respond to some comments that we've
on the lighter side. Sweet man, before we just kick your legs out from under you and talk about Full Metal Jacket again.
Right? Holy shit, has this been a hell of a ride?
Yeah. So we love a little back and forth. So Aaron Smith, we forgot to write down where these videos were captured from. But so this was 3 weeks ago, so this was on the last episode. Aaron Smith posted, you got the gang back together. I was just thinking about this podcast yesterday. I say that, but it could have been any time between January and 30 seconds ago. This podcast is my warm blanket, as is my warm blanket. Well, welcome back, you both. Well, Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron.
That's very, very kind. And then we didn't put one up for 3 weeks.
Yeah. Aaron is a regular commenter. I've seen her name a lot. Sorry, their name a lot. And thanks, Aaron. And it's good to be back, although that first episode was a bit of a false start, shall we say.
We just wanted to rip the Band-Aid off, and maybe we went a little too quickly, and then we've been having trouble syncing up schedules. But I hope after today we'll be back on a semi-weekly kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Next, we have a comment from Daria Malkanova. Sorry if I butchered your surname there. I'm so happy you guys are back. Your podcasts always make my day. Can't wait to see what you do this year. If you are interested, Community might be a show you'll like. It's one of the most unique sitcoms. There's a lot to enjoy and discuss too. I've seen a bit of Community. Have you seen it?
I have watched all of Community. Jess and I watched that together.
Okay.
She loves the show.
I've seen like a good chunk of season 1, maybe a bit of season 2, and I liked it, but it didn't hook me. But maybe I need to keep trying.
What was the missing hook?
I don't know. That's the thing. Like,
think about it.
I honestly, I have no idea. But it's been a while now. But
that's fair.
I did enjoy that. Then it was funny, and it was quirky, and it was sort of doing its own thing. I hadn't really seen anything.
I would agree with Daria. It's one of the most unique sitcoms. It's incredibly creative. It's, you know what it is? It's kind of... this has poor cultural comparisons, but like, I find Rick and Morty in a bubble kind of relentlessly creative. The places they'll go with science fiction and the things they're willing to try and the utter departures they're willing to do. There's an episode where they go into an arcade and Rick shoves the thing on Morty's head, and Morty suddenly lives his entire life as a man on Earth, and dies working at a carpet store. and dies of cancer in his bed or something like that, and Rick rips the thing off him and says, "Oh, you went back to work at the carpet store? Come on, man!" And he puts the thing on, and he gets a high score in Barry, or whatever the game's called, The Life of This Guy.
Yeah.
And that's such a clever, creative idea.
Yeah.
Rick and Morty is
I've seen a little bit of that too.
Yeah, as much as the culture around it is, I have gotten a poor taste from. The show itself, I find kind of relentlessly creative, and I feel that way about Community. Community to me is kind of the live action version of that, where it's very clever, very creative.
Right.
But that's
let me be clear. I did like it. I just, for some reason, it didn't.
Well, all of that said, it didn't hook me.
Okay.
I watched all of it because Jess and I were watching it together. It was a good hangover show after Bad Decisions live streams.
Also, and I really hate this when this happens, but I read a synopsis of the finale, which made me go, "Ah."
Well, if a show doesn't stick the landing, I'm always like, okay, it's for me, it's more about the journey.
Sure. But I just meant more like I would prefer to not know.
Oh, yeah. For me, the problem the reason the show didn't hook me was because I didn't become emotionally invested in the characters, other than Amit and Donald Glover. Donald Glover is the character. I can't remember the name of the character on the show. Mm-hmm. But he is the most emotionally evocative.
He's great.
And that's my bias. I need my feelings. I need the feels. You know what I mean?
I also don't like. Is it Joel McHale? Is that the name of the actor?
And he's
the main
very
guy?
Cool.
I hate him. I hate him with a passion. But maybe he gets better.
I like the cast. Like,
he's a wonderful actor. Don't get me wrong. I hate the character, though.
I just found it just left me a little cold. Like, I want all the feels.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And I would say that's a difference with Rick and Morty. There are a couple of, like, traumatizing moments in that show.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
like where I teared up.
Yeah, because you and I were slutty for the feels.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I will mow your lawn if you make me cry.
I want it all over me. Just give it to me.
I will do your dishes.
I will bathe in your dishes.
I will wash your tub.
I will bathe in your tub?
I will take out the garbage if you make me feel things.
I'll make you feel all of the things, Ian. Okay, this is getting weird. As it always does with us.
Sorry, Robin Rose, 3 weeks ago. So that was the last episode. Hearing you guys talk about Detroit definitely made me realize that I would love to watch both of you play The Last of Us 2 on stream if you haven't played it yet. The game is emotional gray area content. That's putting it lightly. Robin, I finished... I've played the original Last of Us several times. I would probably put it in my top 5. And I was stoked for the Last of Us 2 release. I was so excited. Couldn't wait to play it. And then the pandemic happened. And it is... I played about 10 hours of it. I know most of the major story beats. But there's a major event in the first 10% of it, and then there's a major event in the middle of it where the perspectives shift. And I didn't make it to the second event where the perspective shifts. So that gives you an idea, Robin, of how far through I made it. But as you said, emotional gray area content. During a pandemic, after I'd quit hard drinking for 20 years... and all of that, I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna go play Assassin's Creed. I'm gonna play something a little bit lighter. Maybe something with superheroes.
I loved the first one. I played probably 95 to 97% of the story. I didn't finish it, but I was talking to my brother, who was a big fan. And he told me that I stopped basically just before the ending, like literally like the level before the end, and so I know how it ends.
We've
it's a
watched the
wonderful
ending
game
together. I told you about the ending.
Yes,
and
we
went and watched the ending,
because you were like, you should watch it. I'm like, oh wow, like I wish I got there now because that ending, the parallel between the ending and the beginning, and Sarah and
what it
Ellie
means.
and the
Like I found the beginning, the first
so gorgeous.
I found the first 10%. We're being very vague, and if you haven't played the games, I apologize, but I don't want to spoil.
Yeah.
They're still pretty new.
No,
But I found the events of the first 10% of the second game to be inevitable. I found them to be the inevitable events of the way the first one ended.
I know what happens, and look, I was a little annoyed at first, but after you and I had a pretty in-depth conversation about it, we talked for like an hour about it, and you won me over to the point where I was like, yeah, no, that makes sense. But I can understand why some people aren't happy with it, though. But it does make sense what happens. But yeah, one wonderful game. I don't have a PlayStation currently, and Last of Us is a PlayStation exclusive. But I mean, I think maybe at some point we could play through something together on stream. I don't know.
That'd be good.
We've talked about that for
We
a
have
while.
talked about that. It's just streaming to me is like a deep to do.
Also, there would be some tech issues we'd have to figure out.
Yeah. Well, we got fiber.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's... Yeah, I told you we got fiber.
Yeah. Next comment from Osbian Knight from 3 months ago. So this is a while ago. Osbian says, the Iron Liner looks great. This is directed at me. I'm going to be a little self-indulgent here.
You should
which
be,
I
man.
apologize for.
No, don't apologize. I'm working on a script, and I wrote a line about tactical selfishness or tactical self-love. Like, it's so underrated, and we need more of it. You know, I'm not saying like willy-nilly selfishness, but you know what?
Right. Yeah.
You look good.
Look, I read this comment, and it made me feel good.
Yeah.
You know? So, thank you, Osbian. But Osbian says, everyone says I'm goth. Since I was a teenager. I'm 27 now. Even a running joke among my work colleagues since I wear mostly black. Thanks to the ridiculous amount of aesthetic videos I've been watching lately, I'd say it's more witch dark academia / historical inspired kind of look, but don't really care one way or the other. That sounds very Edgar Allan Poe, which I like.
Yeah. First of all, I'm learning so much. I didn't know that there was such a thing as academia historically inspired.
Well, neither did
I love
I.
it.
But here's the thing, like, and this was a huge part of it for me. The way you present yourself to the world, you can do it however the fuck you want.
Yeah.
And you can call it whatever you want. Like, people will look at me and call me goth. It's fine. I mean, I considered myself goth as a teenager. I went through a goth phase. I don't feel like I'm going for a goth look right now. If anything, I'm going for like a Viking aesthetic. But I don't know. It's funny because this whole get up, it happened quite abruptly. Like, I didn't tell anybody I was doing it. I just did it, and partly it was because I just wanted a change. I wanted to feel pretty, if I'm being honest. And it's kind of like, as a guy, you don't like. I do this for myself first and foremost because I like the way it looks, and I think it looks good, and it makes me feel good. It makes me feel confident, but. Truth be told, as a guy, you don't do this because you don't want people to notice you. If you're shy and you don't want to stand out, you don't do this, and I fully accept that. It's not about getting attention, but of course, I'm not afraid of that, if you know what I mean. Because in a way, I'm kind of asking for it, kind of not in a like look at me, please, but just more like a. You know, I know some people are going to comment on it, and some people are going to think it's weird or whatever, and I don't care.
So, growing up, my dad was very, very, very much of the fashion is a racket. My dad had a bright red plaid sports jacket that he bought in the 70s, and he wore until I no longer lived at that house anymore. It was hanging in the closet. He would go to the mall and wear sweatpants with the socks. It has a rubber band at the base, and he'd pull his socks over, wool socks, over the top of him, and he would wear flat boat shoes.
I love that because...
And shirts with holes in them, right? So this was like junior high school when I was I was sort of at that peak of like not wanting to be seen with my parents, and my dad went out of his way. Well, not really. Like he just my dad's fashion is not trying, right?
Okay.
And I grew up with that like continuous like voice in my ear of like it's a thing, and I'm just gonna dress for comfort in the way I want, and yada yada yada. But you know what? I got older and I kind of realized presentation matters.
That took me a while.
It took me a long time to get. Yeah.
I mean,
I've talked to Lonnie about this, and she's like, "Well, that's a very sloppy male perspective to have." I was like, "Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Look who you're talking to."
For the longest time, my attire consisted of band shirts and just shirts from Kmart with funny slogans on them. Now I actually care more. I like dressing up. I've talked before about how I love formal wear. I just think it looks freaking badass. So, I love it.
I guess partly the point of that is like what I'm acknowledging that this is a uniquely male journey.
Of course, yeah.
Like
dudes,
we don't have the same cultural expectations from a young age. So we're middle-aged and approaching middle-aged men who are like, oh, presentation matters. But here's the thing: is like you don't have to care about what other people think of you, but like presentation can also matter to you. So
absolutely,
if you present yourself as confident or successful or whatever your vision of that is, then like I've read a lot of books about, well, not books but articles about self-employment and tips for starting a good day and like good routines and all of that, and one of the big ones they say is dress up. Don't go to your computer in pajamas and this information is recirculating right now because of quarantine. But, dress like you were going to the office because presentation matters. You feel different. You feel that separation.
You do.
Yeah.
You absolutely do. And that's how, like... when I put makeup on now, it feels like me.
Sure.
It feels like I'm stepping into a better version of myself, and I like that. It's a wonderful feeling.
Yeah. So that's the thing is like, yes, who cares what other people think? I mean, unless it's like you're going, but that's not even true, right? That's not even true.
Yeah.
Like.
Well, I mean, if you're going on a date,
exactly, or a job interview, or whatever, like,
right. That's important.
It matters. Like, business casual exists for a reason. Like, there is something that is culturally considered professional. And the thing is, when my dad was saying like, all of that, well, when I was growing up, it was like, I know he went to an office and had to put on a tie and all of that, and that's because presentation matters. And he probably internalized that as, it's a school outfit or whatever it was, like they're making me a drone. But I don't think that's the case. I think like professional employees create a professional environment and all of that. But if it's true of that, then it's also true of your home and relationships and all of that. Yeah. So there's no need to be subject to what other people think, but it does matter. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It does, And look, before I started bothering too much with this stuff, I referred to my style as hobo chic. And you know what? If that's your thing, go for it. Yeah. If that's what you like, sure. But I don't know. I just dig what you dig. And look, if you want to go out wearing a purple tutu, then do that. Like, If you want to wear spandex, do it.
Right.
If you want to wear a Superman onesie, do that.
And in terms of dating, like if you show up if you show up tatted out in eyeliners and with Viking stuff in your beard, you're sending a signal. You're putting up a flag.
Exactly.
You're saying, "Look,
Yeah.
here's me. You better
Yeah. Exactly.
in or not.
Yeah.
Not is okay, but you
Exactly,
know what
yeah.
you're getting into."
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, you can't, like, show up to the second date looking like this, because then they go, wait, hang on. What?
That's the thing, right? That's why I think over time, like, those kinds of things matter. If you, especially like if you're dealing with depression or confidence issues or whatever, like little changes like that can filter inward. If you accept the premise that we are animals and like that these tricks can work, yes, you know better. But knowing better doesn't, like, we've told several stories today about times when we knew better, but it didn't matter because the emotional perspective, the entrenched emotional experience of something carried far more power than our intellectual perspective on it, right? So, sure, you know that you're not going to the office, but if you putting on an outfit and doing all of that, like if you're depressed and whatever, can sort of like be a Pavlovian pick-me-up.
Yeah. And it gives you, I swear it does give you a boost of those feel-good brain chemicals. It really does. It just changes something. Even, like, no matter how bad I'm feeling, I still shower every day. I still, do the minimum things. It's okay, Ian. No judgment. It's fine.
Well, it's a butterfly.
But speaking about Viking, the last comment here is from Brianna Carlisle, who says, "The eyeliner makes your eyes pop, Jack. Have you ever tried Viking braids, or would you be willing?" So here's the thing: I could braid at my current length, but I want to get a little bit longer before I start braiding. But the thing is, I don't really know how to braid. I know it's very simple,
that's
but
what YouTube's for, baby.
Braiding one's own beard, I don't know. I'm gonna give it a go, but I do have some Viking beads that I've worn a couple of times. Actually, I've got them right here. These wonderful little things that I purchased from a Swedish company called Grimfrost. So I put them in sometimes, and it makes me feel all pretty and like a Viking. Even though I don't really have Viking heritage, I like to pretend that I do. But yeah, thanks everybody.
Yeah, we appreciate the comments. Please leave more of them.
Yes, absolutely.
We're not always sure. Like, we know why we do this podcast, but we're not always sure what you guys are getting out of it. If it's landing for you, what you're feeling. So the feedback is, we're human. The feedback is welcome and appreciated.
And that's why we're always open to hear about what you guys want to see and want us to do. Like, because, like, without an audience, we're just, like, we're just two dudes chatting, which we do every day, more or less.
Well, honestly, I think originally I was like, well, we'll just have a conversation and record it. And put it online. But that's again my approach to content, is that's something I would do anyway, that is rewarding for me no matter what. And if we put it out there, that's the reaction I can control.
Yeah. Right.
So let's move on. We we finally got back to working on a list of shame. Actually, we did two movies. The first one before this was From Dusk Till Dawn, which didn't go over well with the other members of our...
I loved that film, and I loved it, but by the end of it, I felt bad, because I felt like I dragged you all through an awful experience.
That was 4 hanging faces on our Zoom call.
And then by the end of it, I'm just like, oh, this is a bad idea. I shouldn't have put this on the list.
Well, we wrote the list originally thinking it was just going to be the two of us, and now there's the 4 members of the group.
Yeah.
And that changes what you choose to put on the list. And we didn't account for that.
Yeah, like we talked about afterwards, like that film would have been fine for you and me, but not. Yeah,
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 but I also I'm that person in the room that subconsciously feels responsible for everyone's good time. You know,
and I felt responsible for that because it was my choice,
yeah.
and
So
I love that film.
yeah, so I
Yeah.
about halfway through I perked up, but the next movie we pulled was Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan,
Right. Yes.
which was
yes,
way better.
yes. Way better than the first one. Yes.
It's you know what's weird about that movie is it's so hammy.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I shall leave you, Kirk, as you left me,
It's very Shakespearean. I think we were talking about.
buried alive.
Come.
Yeah, it's very very theatrical, which is fun.
Yeah.
But watching it this time, I was kind of struck by how there's interesting running thematic threads about. I think if I did a critical rewatch of that movie, there could be some fun stuff to write about.
Right.
But there's like a interesting theatrical thread about aging and birth and rebirth and all of that I think is more interesting than or deeper than the presentation.
Right. Yeah, yeah. I can't say that I enjoyed it, but I can't say that I hated it either. And it made me feel something at the end. I had genuine feels at the end.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's I sometimes
talking spoilers.
Yeah. Well, I
don't
mean
know.
the movies. In the,
I think
the
we
80s.
should,
And the next
yeah.
one's called The Search for Spock. So
Yeah, exactly. So like Spock dies in a scene that's pretty harrowing. Like
pretty great.
He does the sacrifice play. He saves everybody by putting himself in harm's way, and like he goes into this chamber where massive amounts of radiation are leaking, and by the end of it, he's covered in all these welts, and Kirk's there is all like, "I love you, man." He's like, "I love you too, man."
Oh my god, I want to watch your version of Spock's death. I love you, man. I love you too, man.
I love you too.
I love you.
Hey, that's a project we could do. But look, it genuinely made me feel something. I was like, oh, that's really sad.
Yeah.
And yeah. So,
Yeah, there's a for all the overacting. I don't think that. I don't think that William Shatner is as bad of an overactor as people say he is.
No.
I think
not
he's
here anyway.
I think that he is. He chews the scenery. I got into a conversation with someone about the definition of that term on Twitter. To me, that's the half step below overacting, where it's big, it's theatrical, it's fun, and I've always felt that way about Shatner, where he's just kind of ridiculous, but in a very entertaining way. But his ceremony for Spock at the end of that movie, to me, is so good.
Yeah, but it's
Here's
he's really going for it. Though.
I love.
Like, my God.
No, I don't think so.
Really?
There's one
Okay.
note. There's one note, and I learned this note from that speech.
Okay.
I'll play the note for you. But it's very alliterative. It's very he hits every syllable very clearly, and that's kind of the William Shatner stereotype. But I'm a parrot, and I love acting and doing vocal performances and stuff like that, and the channel is my way of doing that. But so I'll catch myself doing monologues in the shower. I don't sing in the shower. I do monologues in the shower and stuff like that. And I do I do the one from the end of that because it taught me that note. And listen for the note.
Okay.
Of my friend, I can only say this. Of all the souls I've seen in my travels, his was the most human. That's the note.
Yeah, look,
the way he hits most is so affecting.
Yeah, maybe I'm clouded by
I mean,
William Shatner being William Shatner.
He's
you
like
know what I mean?
Ishtar or Nickelback. He's such a punching bag in the. It's so in vogue to shit
And
on Shatner, and like I'm not talking about the man. Like his public identity
Yeah.
is whatever it is.
Yeah, and so it's harder to be impartial, I guess.
Sure.
But I don't know, like it is a good scene, but it kind of makes me laugh too. I don't know, like.
It's fine.
Maybe also because it's from the 80s, it's kind of cheesy and hammy. Like, I don't know.
I will tell you, if I called you one day and I said, Jack, I want to read you something, and I just read you that monologue
without me knowing,
and I looked up, you would be crying.
Probably, yeah.
And
if I had no idea what it was,
him, and you had no idea what it was, it's a very affecting monologue. It just happens to be in this like, from hell's heart, I stab at thee.
It's just, it's I don't know, man. It's.
I'll be honest. That's the first time I've watched Star Trek 2. So we've watched the motion picture. They're all on the list of shame. So we're going to happen on all of them at some point. I think I filtered the Next Generation stuff. There's only 2 of them on there. But I have not watched that movie probably since we rented it on VHS from the video station in Boulder when I was a kid. And the reason why is it has a bit of horror in it that scarred me for life. Khan has these bugs that he puts in people's ears.
They're like earwigs.
Yeah, that makes them more suggestible and allows them to control their mind. And it's such a gross bit of horror. Then they do this zoom in on this, like they get the scale kind of weird where people's ears look huge. And the bugs crawling out, whatever the model was that they made out of it. So like watching it as an adult, I finally got over that scene where I was like, oh, okay, this is a bit of hammy fun. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. It's not that bad for me, but I mean,
it's better than Star Trek 1, and it's better than Star Trek 5.
I mean, it's absolutely better than Star Trek 1. Like, Star Trek 1 was a slog. I couldn't wait for that to be over. Like,
Yeah.
Some nice ideas, but executed so poorly. So poorly.
Yeah, it's a 45-minute episode of the original series, puffed out to a 2-hour snore fest.
Really? It was only 2 hours? That felt like so much longer.
There's fun ideas in it, but holy Toledo.
Yeah, I love the V'ger thing. I thought that was a really creative idea.
It was really cool.
Because I'm a space nerd. I love all that stuff. But it was just done in such a way that I didn't care. I just didn't care by the end.
So after that, we rolled the movie that we were actually going to talk about. We're going to run long today, so that's fine.
That's fine.
Full Metal Jacket.
Yes. Oh, my God, this film, Ian. From 1987, directed by the legendary Stanley Kubrick, and starring Vincent D'Onofrio, Ali Ermey, and Matthew Modine. Holy hell, Ian. So, this was the first time I had seen it. You had seen it before, right?
Yeah, I watched Full Metal Jacket way too young. I've watched many movies way too young. And there are 3 particularly scarring moments of violence in the film that stuck with me for years. And then I watched it again in college. It's a very, if you're a film buff, you remember that joke in Buffy where, in The Freshman, where they said, is it a Monet or a Klimt?
Okay.
And they have a game going for what cliche the freshmen are, because every freshman had a Klimt poster or a Monet poster. Score 1 for Klimt, and he puts the poster up because it's such it's like your first. I really like Klimt. I really like Monet, but it's so popular at that particular age and I would argue like there were a lot of Einstein posters on the wall, but it's so popular at that particular age that's the time when you become very interested.
Yeah.
And poster stores are loaded with Monet and Klimt posters. I like among film nerds and the film cinephiles and all of that, like Stanley Kubrick is definitely one of the.
Oh yeah.
He's a Klimt or a Monet that people when they're first getting into film and really start to think like I'm a film buff, they really dive into Stanley, and they really the big hitters are Full Metal Jacket and.
A Clockwork Orange.
A Clockwork Orange. Thank you. Yeah, not The Shining. A Clockwork Orange is the other one.
And 2001 as well.
2001, of course. Yeah, but that one's almost so ubiquitous that it's cooler, man, to like.
Right.
Because A Clockwork 2001 isn't subversive in the same way that A Clockwork Orange is, and to some degree.
See, I haven't seen either of them.
Well, A Clockwork Orange is on the list, and it is just as miserable an experience as.
I know it's a rough one. I know that.
My point with all of that is that, especially in college, I used to think that I was a big film buff, and I'm not. I enjoy. I've realized that certain films deliver emotional experiences or artistic impacts that I'm interested in.
Yeah,
but I'm not.
See, I consider myself
interested in the study
film
of
nerd.
film.
Well,
that's what this exercise is for, then. Now you can say that because you've seen Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah, boy.
Score one for Kubrick.
Yeah. No, look.
All of that, by the way, again, I actually really love Gustav Klimt, and of course, I enjoy Monet. The point, my point was just like, I thought it was interesting the way that cultural cliche sort of mirrors other art forms. Full Metal Jacket is an incredible movie. I have mixed feelings about Clockwork Orange, but go ahead.
And I mean, Kubrick is held to a really high esteem, deservedly so. I mean, I think
sounds like a terrible human being, but
right.
One wonders if certain directors or artists who are living in the social media age were around. If we would have gotten their later works.
What is that? What is with that, though? Like, there's so many, like, hyper creative geniuses that are complete dickbags. Like, it seems really common. It's so strange.
I think that is a confirmation bias problem. Where they're just so prominently featured. There are that's auteur theory, too, I think. There are tons of people making great work, and it happens that we discover that certain people who make great work are assholes, and they tend to skew our perspective of people talk about Hollywood types and like to lump everyone together. There's thousands and thousands of people making stuff in Southern California, let alone Canada, Toronto, all of that.
Scorsese's great, Spike Jonze. Like, there's so many amazing directors out there that don't seem to be shitheads. So,
which is another reason why, you know what, if we had if Kubrick hadn't survived these times, if that had meant we hadn't gotten Eyes Wide Shut, so be it. That's a theater open for a different person to try. I'm sure there are so many voices that slip through the cracks that are going to make great things that we never hear about.
Right. Yeah. But I didn't really know what to expect going into this one. Like, I knew it was about the military, and I had seen that famous improv scene with Ali Ermey and Vincent D'Onofrio, the one where Ermey's just he was improvising, he was just riffing, and D'Onofrio starts breaking character and laughing, and rather than ruining the scene, they just rolled with it. I've heard that was completely improv, which I think is great. So I knew that there was an element of military training, but I didn't really know what to expect beyond that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the movie is, I mean, for anyone who hasn't seen Full Metal Jacket, the movie is divided into essentially two stories. There is the story of basic training, and then there is the story of a single day. I think it's a single day ish
Vietnam, right?
in Vietnam and the
Yeah.
events of both. The first one is a continually escalating vice grip tightening
It
over
doesn't
and
let
over.
up. It just keeps going until it explodes. It's
Literally. And then
Yeah.
the second one sort of waffles for a bit, and then the last 10, 15 minutes are equally traumatizing and awful,
Yeah.
and all of that. So, what did you think of the movie?
You know, it's so you said it's split into two halves. I've heard that apparently some critics at the time panned it because they said that the second half wasn't as good as the first half, which I disagree with. Look, I think part one was the best. I do, but I think they were both equally as affecting. But yeah, that first half, man, oh god. So basically, what happens is this guy is basically bullied in basic training and has so much shit hung on him that he basically snaps and he shoots his drill sergeant dead and then shoots himself. And boy, did I not expect that. I did not see that coming. Like that, like you saw me, like when it happened, I was like, whoa, what? Like,
It's so funny
holy
because we
shit.
do a 3-2-1 play among four people. Everyone's kind of at a different point, and you were a little behind by about 10 seconds. And so it was so funny seeing you react to stuff that I had seen on screen already. Yeah, and for this kind of experience where I've seen this movie 3 or 4 times because, again, repeated exposures when I was younger, I was more watching your guys' reaction to this than the movie itself sometimes.
Yeah,
I know
it's
all
like
the
me when I'm watching.
First of all, it's so scarring that one viewing is enough to remember the major beats for the rest of your life.
Yeah, like I will watch it again, but that's only because I want to absorb it more, you know.
Yeah.
But it's not one that you really forget at all.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I'm always kind of interested. It's sort of that the main thesis of Top 10 Buffy or Angel episodes to pair with wine and a good cry. Why do we value great tragedy in our entertainment? And why are we attracted to stories like this? You know, stories that are horrific and violent and,
Right.
you know, and in a way that's deeply different from like Reservoir Dogs, for instance.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that a bit too because, like, you know me, I'm a big softie. I'm a teddy bear. I'm very warm. I'm very loving, but I love horror movies and I love shit like this that makes me go, what the fuck? Like, I love that stuff. So what is that? Like, I don't...
I mean, to me, Full Metal Jacket is a more profound horror movie than most of the horror films that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And it's not a horror movie.
Yeah, like... No, but this affects me and disturbs me more than most horror movies I've seen. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and there's some
Most
argument to be
horror
made for,
movies.
like, the emotional catharsis that we received from it, but still, like, after the movie was done, the four of us sitting there talking, it was like we'd been to war ourselves. Like, four of us had, like, 1,000-yard stares, and and I'm sure that was part of the intended effect.
Yeah,
You know?
I think one of the distinctions, for me, is that this Full Metal Jacket says something about some really dark subject matter, whereas something like Scream or Nightmare on Elm Street doesn't do that. It's just horror, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, Scream. Well, no, Scream is like a send up of, but that's a different.
Yeah,
thing.
Scream is satire.
Yeah. So I think that's partly what it is. Like this is Kubrick making a comment on the horrors of the military, and not just that, like the dehumanization that takes place in the military, because that is a real thing. In the military, they kind of teach you to detach yourself from your humanity a little bit, because it makes the act of killing easier.
Yeah. Yeah, for
that is a legit thing.
Some sort of surface reading, like Upham to me represents kind of childhood hope and innocence, which can't survive the process of becoming a killer.
Right.
And it is ultimately destroyed and weeded out. And then the second movie is a little bit less that. Just maybe a little bit intending to be a little more representative, or a little bit more. There's a saying we talk about how the second movie is boring, all of a sudden incredibly
and then 10
compelling.
minutes of wow. Yeah,
There's a saying that I cannot remember that has to do with war being 29 days of boredom and tedium and 1 day of extreme terror and nightmare, and I think that's represented in the structure of the second act.
Sure. Which is probably intentional, I think, because Kubrick was intentional in a lot of things, but I don't know. That's just
and Joker also has a line about why his helmet says "Born to Kill" and why he's wearing a peace symbol, and he has a line that he delivers humorously about the dichotomy of man, that I think is actually the intended theme of that second act.
There was a lot of that, like stuff written on the helmets. What's his name? The guy that was an angel.
Adam Baldwin. He was in Firefly.
Yeah, Adam Baldwin. On his hat it says "I am become death," which is a quote from is it J. Robert Oppenheimer? He was involved in the Manhattan Project.
Yeah, well, he was quoting an ancient Hindu text, but that is most famous for him writing about that after
exactly.
The atom bomb.
It's now become more. It is from the ancient Hindu text, but it's now synonymous with the atom bomb. But he was saying how when he saw the first detonation, it came to mind. Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. And so I think there was a lot of commentary taking place in this film, just about war in general. But like the endings for me, like the ending of part one and the ending of part two. The distinction for me is that the ending of part one left me shocked and stunned, whereas the ending of part two made me want to cry. Like it left me full of sorrow and like it's part two ends with basically so there's a company of soldiers and they get pinned down by a sniper who eventually gets shot, and it turns out it's a young Vietnamese girl, and they're
like
standing around
14
her.
years old, something like that.
Yeah, and they're standing around her as she's dying, and then she begs them to shoot her, and it's horrific shit.
Yeah,
like it's.
The one thing that I was struck by this time was sort of, which is a thing I can't turn off, which was like examining the elements of the composition, the music and the edits, and there are a ton of stunning shots that go on for a while. The way the camera follows people so closely, the set design was it's so weird. Just speaking well of Full Metal Jacket, it's like praising The Wizard of Oz, but the set design was incredible. Like
didn't you say
everything was practical?
Like the Vietnam scenes were filmed in like Connecticut or something like that.
I think it was
like,
Louisiana, maybe.
But I could have sworn that was on location in Vietnam. They made it look exactly like.
Well, I think the country was
so
closed when that movie was made.
It would have been. Yeah.
It's an incredible film. I always. I don't know. I'm never quite sure what I get out of that experience. That has me. I continue to like. I've watched Schindler's List many times. Schindler's List is gorgeous. Schindler's List is hopeful. This movie is not. This movie is very nihilistic.
But I think, it's nihilistic, but it's speaking about something that is awful. You know, war is awful, and I don't think this is glorifying it, and I know you're not saying that, but I think in a way this is saying something positive because it's pointing out how awful and senseless war is and how.
But did we need to watch the movie to see that?
Well,
I'm not saying I didn't enjoy the movie. I'm saying I don't understand why I enjoyed the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying. It's a difficult thing to decipher. No, we didn't need the movie to understand that, but I think it reinforces one's beliefs, I guess.
Maybe it was what we were talking about earlier. There's difference between getting something intellectually and getting it emotionally. And
right. Yeah. And this is
the emotional truth of something is much different.
Right. Yeah. But standouts for me, Vincent D'Onofrio, who plays Private Pyle. He is the young man that is bullied to the point where he freaking snaps. I didn't realize that this was Vincent D'Onofrio until I was researching afterwards. I'm like, what? That was what? Like, that's crazy because I'm not used to seeing him as a young man. But his performance, though, is, I want to call it disturbingly captivating, especially the end there. Like, there's something about it that is captivating, even though I know that's not really a word I should be using here.
Well, it could have been over the top. When his breakdown scene could have been over the top, but it's very contained. And there's a moment where you think it's going to go over, and then it just sort of collapses in on itself. And it's very affecting.
Yeah, and you and I were talking about at the time how Kubrick was a perfectionist, and we can't imagine how many times he would have want that done over and over and over again because he was a perfectionist.
Yeah,
crazy perfectionist.
Who's the guy? He's the director of Tootsie. Nobody wants to see a story about people who live next to toxic waste. They can see that in New Jersey. Sidney, I can't remember his name. I can see his face clearly.
Portier or something like that. Sidney, no.
Sidney Pollack.
That could be it. Yeah, I
That's.
think it starts with.
Well, it's not. It's not like we both don't have a.
Right.
It is Sidney Pollack. Sidney Pollack is in Eyes Wide Shut, and I've.
Okay.
And Sidney Pollack is a director, and I've seen an interview with him talking about the experience of filming Eyes Wide Shut, and Stanley Kubrick made him do 50 takes of walking up to a door, opening it, looking out in the hallway, closing it, and walking away. Like
that's insane.
50 takes. Yeah, and I mean,
and that's a nightmare for an editor because who wants to go through 50 takes?
I'm sure Stanley went through the 50 takes with him.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that there's not a lot of he didn't have a lot of repeat actors. I think he had a kind of a disposable perspective on the actors that he worked with. So not a lot of repeat actors, and who the hell wants to go through that multiple times? I mean, I'm just guessing. Yeah. I don't know. I don't remember many of the stories from that. But nonetheless, we got Spartacus and Paths of Glory and, Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah, right.
And Barry Lyndon said no one. Go ahead.
But also another standout, of course, is Ali Ermey, who wasn't an actor initially. He served in the United States. Yeah, he was after that. But yeah, he served in the United States Marine Corps from 1961 to 1972, and he also worked as a drill sergeant. The story goes that he was hired as a consultant, but Kubrick liked him so much that only gave him a part in the film, and so he was basically like playing himself. But he was amazing too. Like the energy, man. Like he was just boom, boom, boom. Like it's really, really, really incredible stuff.
Yeah, someday I will never watch Full Metal Jacket again.
Look, I'm just gonna summarize by saying that it was awful, disturbing, and horrific, and I loved it. And it it's probably like there's a few Kubrick films I haven't seen, but to date, this is my favorite Kubrick film. Like it's good.
Yeah, I mean, like the construction is so interesting. The soundtrack in both of those sequences is not melodic particularly, but it is incredibly affecting. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think about it. He's not high on my list of.
Kubrick's not. Yeah, me neither.
None of his movies really crack. Because again, I know what I watch. I now know, as much as I can look at them and appreciate the art and the construction and all of that.
Yeah,
I know what I watch stories for.
Yeah,
I know what I go to stories
honestly,
for.
This is the only Kubrick film so far that I can say that I actually love. Like The Shining, I appreciate what it did for the genre, but it's just boring. It just is. And a lot of the other stuff I've seen, it's just it's fine. I think Kubrick does deserve his place, kind of, but. Yeah, he wouldn't be like top 10 or even top 20.
I'm forgetting a movie he made right now, but anyway. Before we get into the fanfic reading, I just want to let you know that I am at Ian Nittram on Twitter.
And I'm at Lack of Surprise 1. That's all one word with the number 1 at the end.
If you'd like to support the podcast and keep us flush with Valium and chili hearts, you can do so at patreon.com/passionofthenerd. With the $5 and up club, you can join us in the Hangout on April 3rd at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, and is when the rewatch is. And the Hangout is at 6:30. We'll be watching and talking about Season 5, Episode 7 of Buffy, Fool for Love.
That's going to be fun, that. Whoa.
But yeah, it's going to be a long one.
That's a big one.
We limit seats in the conversation to 10 people, so check the Patreon page for when to join. Otherwise, they would be. I can't sit for that long.
I mean, even with 10 people, that can go over 2.5 hours.
Yeah, we've gone 3 hours on some episode. I was like, really? We did 3 hours on this? If you can't make it, the discussions are a lot of fun and have often changed my perspective on the episodes. And the replays can be found in a playlist over on the main channel. Go to the main page, scroll down to playlists.
You can also help us out by grabbing yourself something from passionathenerd.com/store. T-shirts, hoodies, mugs, phone cases, all of the regular stuff you'd expect to find in a merch store. You can get all of that there.
All right, let's go to the fanfic reading now. Here is Gone by Terri Botta, Chapter 41. The first thing Buffy saw when she arrived back at the magic box was the broken window. The window hadn't been so much broken as completely blasted away, and she threw herself through the open door that teetered on one hinge. The wreckage stunned her, and she tried to take it in, all of it. The circular reading table was flipped upside down and cracked into 2 pieces. The bookcases behind it had collapsed, and all the books lay scattered on the floor. Tara lay unconscious amid the debris, her hair cascading over her face. In the front of the store, the glass counter had been smashed and glass had littered everywhere. Lying in a pool of his own blood, his body facing the open door, one hand outstretched to reach for nothing, was Spike. The vampire's eyes were open, his face blank as he stared straight ahead. "Buffy!" Willow cried, rushing in. The witch skidded to a stop beside her friend, and they both stared at the damage before them. "Oh my God," Willow breathed. Then she saw Tara. "Oh no, Tara!" Willow raced to her lover's side, panicked as she shook the other girl. Buffy was relieved to hear a pained moan come from Tara. Tara, oh God, Tara, what happened?" Willow asked as Tara sat up, one hand on her bloodied forehead. The window. It exploded, and I heard Dawn scream." "Dawn? Where's Dawn?" Buffy demanded, her eyes sweeping the rubble. "She was with Spike when—" Tara stopped, looking around the shop until she saw Spike on the floor and by the smashed counter. "Oh my God." "The alarm! Buffy! The one We cast to warn us if Glory showed up. It sounded. I think Glory might have taken Dawn, Willow said, her eyes wide and frightened. Buffy immediately began ripping through the piles of books and broken wood, tossing them aside in a desperate search for her sister. The two witches watched with tears on their cheeks until Tara managed to make her way to Spike's side. The vampire was completely still and silent, his eyes open and blank. He didn't even blink. "Spike?" Tara whispered, shaking him gently. There was no response. Suddenly a foot came from the right, kicking Spike hard in the gut and rolling him away. Shocked, Tara looked up to see an enraged Buffy. "Where is she?" Buffy demanded. Spike's lack of response only served to make her angrier, and she kicked him again. "Where's my sister, you undead pain in the ass?" "Buffy," Tara tried. What happened, you bastard?" she yelled, kicking the prone vampire repeatedly. "Buffy!" Willow cried. "Buffy, stop!" Panting heavily, the Slayer stopped, her hands clenched into fists and her face stained with tears. "Buffy, he's not responding. I'm not sure he's even in there anymore," Willow explained. Tara crawled over to the blank-faced vampire and looked into his wide, staring eyes. I think he's gone inside." "Oh, good Lord," Giles' voice breathed, and they looked to see the Watcher, Anya, and Xander standing in the open doorway. "The shop! What happened to the shop?" Anya screamed. "The money!" The ex-demon raced for the toppled cash register as Giles and Xander surveyed the damage. "Oh, man, what happened here?" Xander breathed. "Giles, Dawn's missing," Buffy said tersely. "The advance warning alarm sounded. We think it might have been Glory," Willow added. "Glory," Giles repeated, stunned. "How?" We don't know. Spike might know, but he's zombie vamp," Buffy replied. "He's gone catatonic, Giles," Willow explained worriedly. "He's not responding at all." Giles walked through the sea of shattered glass to where Willow and Tara sat by the vampire's side. Judging by the amount of blood on the floor and on Spike, the vampire had not gone down quietly. But the open, blank stare on Spike's face worried him. He leaned down and shook the vampire on the shoulder. "Spike?" He shook a little harder when he got no response. "Spike!" It's no use, Mr. Giles," Tara said. Giles sighed. "Unfortunately, if what you say is true and Glory does have Dawn, then we need Spike because he's the only one who has any idea where Glory might have taken her." "Why?" Buffy demanded. "Why would Spike know where Glory took Dawn? What else have you been keeping from us, Giles?" Giles sighed again. "I know that Spike has done extensive legwork on Glory and her plans to use the key. It's been his obsession for the last few months." "Oh, and here I thought Buffy was his obsession. Nice to know the guy can split his attentions like that," Xander commented irritably. "Xander, not now," Buffy snapped back. "It is true that Spike has been preoccupied with his feelings for Buffy. He loves her," Tara interjected. "And Dawn." "Yes, I do believe he does," Giles agreed. "As such, keeping the two of them safe has been his priority. And yet, to determine how much his presence and actions have affected this situation, I know there's been a great deal that he has done in the demon world. What he has uncovered, he has been reluctant to tell me, probably because he thought I would not help him. I have no doubt that he knows more about Glory and the ceremony than he has let on." "Because Spike never keeps secrets and tells lies," Buffy snarked. Giles ignored her comment. "It is quite possible that Spike has an idea of where the ceremony is taking place and when. We need to do everything we can to bring him back from wherever he's gone." "I can try and do that, Giles," Willow offered. "There's some spells." "Good, Willow, you do that," he confirmed. "In the meantime, we can go through the box of scrolls Spike had me get from this creepy guy's apartment," Buffy said, indicating the small wooden chest she had dropped on the floor when she returned to the magic box. "Who?" Giles asked. Buffy picked up the box and handed it to Giles. "Spike told me about this demon guy he killed. He said he heard that he was a follower of Glory and might have a box of scrolls that could help us, but that he never had a chance to go check it out. I told him I would go." She looked around at the wreckage, frowning guiltily. It was why I wasn't here when... Giles, you don't think... The older man cut her off. No. I seriously doubt he knew Glory would attack that quickly. If he had, he most certainly would have urged us to move faster. It is likely that he was taken by surprise. Still, if I'd been here, you would most probably have been killed or otherwise defeated by her. Glory is very strong, he assured. You're probably right, she conceded. Well, let's see what's in this box, shall we? Where did you say Spike sent you? Some rat's nest on the other side of town. Real dump that smelled awful. Spike said he killed the guy who lived there. Was there a body? Anya asked suddenly. Buffy's brow creased. Actually, no, there wasn't. But there was a big blood stain on the rug. Struck me odd because Spike isn't known for cleaning up after himself. Anya looked thoughtful for a moment, then gave a confident smile. It was probably scavengers. There are demons that eat carrion. Buffy crinkled up her nose. Ugh! So did not need to know that. Here, let's get a space and see what these scrolls have to offer. I doubt we have much time, so we need to work quickly, Giles said. We're just about ready here, Mr. Giles, Willow announced from where she and Tara sat by Spike. Very good. I hope you succeed in bringing him back. So I can kill him, Buffy added lowly. Giles ignored her as he cleared a safe spot to sit and read the scrolls. Willow lit the incense and cast the spell that would allow her to access Spike's mind. Breathing in deeply, she recited the words and felt her consciousness slip inwards, going through a dark tunnel. When she finally stopped moving, she opened her eyes to see a dark and barren wasteland. The earth was blackened and devoid of all life. Fissures in the ground belched foul-smelling smoke. The sky was blood-red with ominous black clouds, and thunder rumbled in the distance. Looking around, across the empty plain, she spied a fortress looming on the horizon. Guess that's where I need to go, the young witch thought. As she made her way across the scorched earth, Willow realized that it wasn't as empty as she had originally thought. All along the way there were bodies covered in black ash, littered around. At first, she thought it was a battlefield and that the corpses were fallen soldiers. But then she realized that the dead ranged from the very young to the very old, with men and women of all ages in between. His victims, she realized, gasping. Tears stung her eyes as she lost count of the dead. Pitiful, twisted bodies strewn all along her way. They were silent as she passed, and only the howling wind answered her unspoken prayers. It sickened her to see them, contorted in their death throes. A young woman preserved in a silent scream here, a man with a railroad spike jutting out of his eye socket there. Hundreds of them, thousands of them. The accumulated carnage of a century of killing. And she wondered to herself how she could have ever considered this creature to be her friend. How she could have ever turned her back to him, nor left him with her lover, or trusted him in any way. He was an unrepentant killer for over 100 years. Tried to kill Buffy lots of times. Tried to kill me and Xander. The only thing that stopped him was the chip. What could Tara have been talking about when she said he'd changed? But hadn't he? He'd been helping them for the past year. He'd taken beatings and risked his own life to keep the rest of them safe. And Tara insisted on multiple occasions that Spike deserved better treatment from them. But how could he, when he had killed so many without remorse or mercy? It doesn't matter right now. We need him, so I have to get him back. The ground rumbled beneath her feet, and she felt a shiver of fear run up her spine. Stepping up her pace, she hurried for the fortress, feeling an urgency she hadn't felt before. Eyes were watching her. She just knew it. She could feel them staring holes into her back, and she began to run. Snarls came from behind her, and the sound of rushing feet dogged her heels. Terror seized her, and she raced across the open plain, praying that she would reach safety before whatever was behind her managed to catch up. The ground she thought was flat proved to be anything but, as holes opened up underneath her feet as she ran, tripping her up and adding to her growing panic. The snarls were still behind her and getting closer, but she was almost to the forbidding walls of the fortress. Picking herself up off the blackened ground where she had fallen beside the body of a teenage girl, she wrenched her gaze away from the horror of the girl's screaming face and made a final dash. She hit the solid metal doors, sobbing with relief as she found it unlocked. Grabbing the heavy handle in both hands, she pulled with all her strength. The door creaked, but did not open. Half mad with panic, knowing her pursuers were almost at the gates, she yanked as hard as she could, feeling the rusted hinges begin to give way. She screamed and pulled again, and the heavy door screamed back as it screeched open. Only opening it wide enough to squeeze her thin frame through, she slammed the door behind her and through the heavy bar. Twin thuds thumped against the other side, nails scraping across the metal, and two howls rose up over the high wall. She paused a moment to catch her breath and calm down before she took stock of her surroundings. Leaning against the barred door, she turned around and looked upon an empty stone courtyard. There were no bodies here. In fact, it looked as if the open space had been swept completely clean. And there was another door directly across from her, this one wooden and arched. Wiping the sweat from her brow, she staggered her way across the courtyard and put her hand on the door handle. It, too, was unlocked, but appeared to have been unused for a long time. It didn't take as much effort to open the door as it had the larger, outer one, and soon she found herself looking down a long stone hallway. Closing the door behind her, she kept an ear out for any dangers or surprises, and made her way down the hall. There was an opening off to her left, and she turned to find a half-open door. Flickering light was coming from beside it, so she slipped in and quietly found herself in a library. The flickering light was coming from a fire crackling in the large stone hearth, but it was who was sitting beside the fire that made her gasp. His hair was sandy brown and a riot of soft curls that defied their owner by slipping out of the band he tried to keep it in. Thin wire glasses perched daintily upon his sharp nose as he held a well-loved book in his delicate, perfectly manicured hand. He was dressed as a Victorian gentleman, in grey tweed, one leg crossed over the other as he read the book in his hand. A cup of tea, long forgotten, sat on the table beside him, along with a small plate of crackers and sausage. "Spike?" Willow gasped, shattering the quiet. The figure jumped, dropped the book, and looked at her with shocked eyes. Oh dear," he stammered, scrambling to pick up the book. He handled it with great care, stroking the spine to make sure it hadn't been broken. "Spike? Is that you?" She tried again, taking a tentative step closer. "Spike? Who? Oh, no, not I. I'm not—" He replied. The resemblance was remarkable. Take away the brown hair and tweed and replace them with platinum blonde and black leather, and it was Spike without a doubt. Her quick mind tried to figure out what was going on. "William?" she offered. The look-alike stood up tall and straightened his jacket. "Yes, I'm William." Okay, totally weird. Spike was a real nerd when he was alive. Hi, I'm Willow. William bowed stiffly. "Pleased to make your acquaintance, Miss Willow, although I'm confused as to how you came to be here." "I came in through the front door." He looked surprised. "You did? You crossed the—" "Oh, I see." He dropped his eyes and turned away. "Yeah, I crossed the field full of bodies. The cemetery, yes. It's kind of creepy out there, actually." William nodded. Yes, I am aware." He raised his eyes to her again. You must be very brave." "Well, I kind of needed to get in here. I'm looking for someone. Maybe you know him. He looks a lot like you, only he's got bleach blonde hair and wears a lot of black. William stiffened and stared at her. Him? What do you want with him? I need his help. Can you tell me where he is? William shook his head sadly. I don't think I can help you, milady. He's been indisposed for quite some time. Haven't seen him in a good while. He used to come out and taunt me. Tease me about reading and poetry. Poetry? Willow repeated. William sniffed and turned up his nose. I'm quite good, really. Eyes opened wide in hope. Would you like to see? Sure? He gave her a brilliant smile and scrambled to retrieve a yellowed note, a front pad from the shelf. He handed it to her proudly and fidgeted his hands as she read the neat handwriting. Effulgent? She repeated. He gave her a shy smile. It was my last work. I died before I could write another. Oh, you died? Well, yes, of course. Mr. Parker stole the notepad from me and read the work aloud. It wasn't finished, of course. The inks were still a bit wet, but afterwards, my lovely Cecily rejected me, and I ran out into the street. His eyes grew misty and far away. That's when she found me. She saw what was inside of me, and wanted me to be with her. I agreed. It hurt. When she bit me, that is. Hurt a lot. Then it didn't hurt any more, and I went somewhere far away. It was nice there. Peaceful. I could see what had happened to what remained of my body, but I was somewhat removed. It did not affect me. He paused and looked around the library. And I came to be here. Something happened. The demon, the one you called Spike, I was called back. We really didn't get along at first. In fact, we rather loathed each other. It was quite unpleasant. But then they came, and he protected me from them. He said I would be safe in here. And so far that has been true. I haven't been able to cross the threshold. They tried for a while, but then they stopped trying. That's when he stopped coming back to me. Willow creased her brow, trying to take it all in. Then her eyes opened wide as the truth dawned on her, and she gasped, covering her mouth with both hands. Oh, my goodness. You're his soul. William blinked at her. Well, yes. I suppose I am. She stared at him in abject shock. What? How, was Spike cursed? Cursed? Good Lord, no. He chose me. Chose you? How? The demon he went to gave me to him. Demon? What demon? The one in Africa. The one he went to see after... He stopped, looking away and lowering his eyes. A slight shudder passed through his thin frame. After, she prompted. William shook his head. After... in the time before. Willow was confused, but she knew she had to let it go. She was running out of time, and she had to get Spike back if they wanted to save Dawn. Look, I don't understand, but I don't have time for that right now. I need to find Spike. Can you tell me where he is? William looked at the half-open door and shied away, wringing his hands. I cannot leave this room. They'll get me if I do. You should stay here with me. You'll be safe here. The teacup is always full. The plate replenishes itself. Willow motioned for him to be silent. I can't. People are depending on me. Glory has Dawn, and Spike might know where she's been taken. I have to find him and get him to come back with me. Oh, I see. Can you tell me if he's here in this fortress? William nodded slowly. Yes, I've never seen him go out. Okay, I'm going to go look for him. He looked at her with worried, frightened eyes. Do be careful, Miss Willow. Don't let them get you. She set her jaw and nodded. I won't. She turned and put a hand on the door jamb before casting him a backward glance. And thanks. You're most welcome, he whispered back as she left behind. Good luck. I'm going to need it, she thought to herself as she stepped back into the stone hall.
Oh boy, well that was a...
Hold on.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm burping. Don't put that in.
I so want to, but I won't. It's okay.
Jack, what are you up to this week?
Well, Ian, I've got quite a few things on right now. I'll be editing a few podcasts for Chipperish. Also, I'll be recording episode 2 of our Farscape podcast with Sarah and Josh. Also, Ian, you and I are going to get some housekeeping type stuff done. Patreon readings. We need to finally get the merch for the podcast up. And there's some stuff to figure out over on the Discord server. So, I mean, in short, what am I up to? Well, everything, it seems.
Yeah.
What about you, sir? What's going on for you?
Working on a new video. I kind of... This is inside baseball granular stuff, but I completely changed my... productivity system today, which sounds like nothing, but to someone who relies so heavily on it because of I've been thinking a lot about process and trying to shorten the gaps and to write more often and to just let go of barriers and just get to it. And so to that end, I shifted productivity systems today. It's really funny. When I first started doing a daily productivity habit, which I recommend to anyone who struggles with calendars or organization or getting things done or anything of that
I see
matter.
you looking at me like that, Ian. I see those eyes piercing through
because
the
you know
screen.
what? I do. I absolutely do. I'm absolutely that guy.
Yeah.
And originally,
I've just started because I need to.
I started in an outliner program, and this used it as sort of a mind map with tasks built into the outliner. And since then, I've did things and to-dos. I talked about it a little bit in the toolbox fallacy, where I didn't really understand what my problem was. And I better do now so that I can work on it, which is like fear and distraction and procrastination, all of that. And no amount of productivity systems and organizational systems and all of that will fix that problem.
Right.
They're very good for what they do, but what they do is not fix that problem. So I'm working on that too. But anyway, I shifted, I've used probably a dozen to-do list applications over the years.
You've sent me about a dozen.
I shifted back to I'm the outliner today, which is the one I started at when I was 22, 23 years old.
I love that about you, though. You're always looking to improve things. It's like, yeah, this is okay, but it could be better.
Well,
That's good.
if you're someone who lives in your to-do list, and well, I don't know if you are, but like for me, the cycle with to-do lists and organizational systems and GTD systems and stuff like that is eventually they get cluttered and break down from lack of proper maintenance. There are things you're supposed to do daily, weekly, monthly to keep the system working.
Right.
And you wipe the system and start over. And you know what it feels like? It feels like reinstalling your computer's operating system.
Yeah.
You know how good a clean install feels?
It feels nice.
Nothing on the desktop.
And
and you're like, I can install whatever I want.
Yeah.
It's pretty nice. So again, that was a little bit granular. I'm working on a new video not related to Buffy or Angel.
Ooh.
Lonnie and I watched a movie that wasn't very good. Neither of us particularly liked it, but it spurred a whole bunch of thoughts I've had about creativity and work and all of that I want to work through in this script. I'm also working on the next Angel episode guide, which is The Trials. Fan favorite. Not one of my favorites, but a fan favorite.
Is that the one with the pregnant lady and Angel's got to help her?
No, that's the first episode of the season. The Trials is the one where Darla has gotten sick and Angel tries to cure her of her... Yeah.
I actually really like that one.
Yeah, not my favorite.
Okay, that's fair.
I get it. It's very entertaining, and the last 3 minutes of the episode are a stunner. But those 3 minutes, aren't the episode.
I-
You could see,
I suddenly feel like we're talking. We're talking about I will remember you again.
or I was made to love you. Like you could say, yeah, but that ending of I was made to love you, yeah, but the rest of
I
the
don't
episode.
really like that episode either. Like that.
Well, that's my point.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Cool.
We'll get into it. I think the Trials is very entertaining. But it's also a little derivative, and it reminds me too much of other stuff that I also have really loved, and I can never stop thinking like, this is pretty much exactly that whole sequence from that movie.
Yeah, but do you realize everything's been done?
Yeah,
Everything.
of course.
Yeah.
It's just, everything is lifted from everything else. I'm not blind to that fact. I haven't written the script yet. Who knows? I may change my mind and love it. That has happened as well.
It has, yeah.
Anyway, and I'm also finally settled in enough here in New York to try and get an eye back on fitness and diet and all of that. So I need to have an eye on that this week. I weigh myself on a regular basis because I think it's important to have the number. To just know.
Yeah,
It's good to have the data. It's like whenever I'm afraid of my finances, I spend so much time worrying what they might be. And then I look at my finances, and even if they're bad, I'm like, okay, well, it's better to know. It's just it's calmer. It's easier to have the information to just go, okay, I can do this, or I can't do this, or whatever it may be. That said, I've had the information and haven't been doing anything about it for the past couple of months, but I think it's about time. So that is my week. Fun stuff.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us, everybody. We appreciate you. We are going to endeavor to be back on a more regular schedule now. We have booked in to film another podcast Tuesday next week. That'll be Monday for those of you in the US. But yeah, take care, everybody. Take a breath. Take it easy. Look after yourselves and look after each other. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you, guys.